Thank you very much. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick Barwick. I'm a professional speaker, trainer, and mentor also. And today I'm here today to talk to you about my journey, about where I've come from, the things that happened to me as a child, and some of the things that I'm currently doing now. This is supposed to be very interactive. I don't want this to be death by PowerPoint or anything like that, so I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions, and I want you to really respond to me and just be open and honest. And we should hopefully have a very enjoyable experience together. So, firstly, today we're not going to talk about Brexit. That's around everywhere at the moment, but fortunately we're going to have some relief from that. Even worse, we're not going to talk about Donald Trump either, or sport, or even the festive period. Today we are going to talk about my favourite subject, me. Yeah, I'm going to talk about me. But firstly, I want to pose a few questions to you. Why? That's the first question. Doesn't make any sense at the moment, does it? Okay. The next part of that is, why do we do what we do? Okay. Why did we choose to work in this field? So if some of you just want to tell me, why did you choose to be a social worker? Or work for fostering people?
Part of something that helps.
Part of something that helps. Great. Anything else?
Yeah, that's probably a similar thing.
Yeah?
Probably eliminated other things that I didn't want to do and then built from there as to what options were available to me. So.
Brilliant. Anything else?
It's what I'd always wanted to do.
Something you always wanted to do. Great. Great.
Fitted with my value base.
Say that again?
Fitted with my value base.
That's a great one as well. Brilliant. Okay. So, this was me when I was a baby. You can't see me because my face is being obstructed by my auntie's hand. And it's quite fortunate because I was a very ugly baby. Okay? But there is me, my mum, and my two aunties next to her. And I was a very ugly baby, and here is the proof. Oh, come on, don't give me that. Look at all the chins. So many chins, okay? Fortunately, my daughter, when she was born, looked nothing like me. So that was fantastic, okay? There's me as a toddler, okay? Now, I show you these pictures because actually, these are the only 3 pictures that I have of me as a baby, okay? They're the only 3 pictures I have of me as a baby. And I really do cherish them. But I also have a picture of me and my brothers. So there's 5 of us in total. I'm 7. My brother Toby's 6 in that picture. Corey's 4. And then I've got 2 little twin brothers who are 2 in that picture. Now I'm going to show you another picture that I call the changing point. And straight away, without any thought, I want you to tell me the first thing that you notice that is different about this picture in relation to the next one. What is the first thing that you notice? There we go. I'm so glad that you've said that, because whenever I do this, a lot of people are like, you look happy. No, we look really big, okay? We do. I call this the gerbil picture. I think we look like a bunch of gerbils. But I call this the changing point, okay? And the reason for that is because this is smack bang in the middle of our abuse, okay? So something that we used to do was just eat all the time. We used to just eat and eat and eat. And that's because food made us feel a lot better, okay? So when something bad was happening to us, if we then went and had something really sugary, really fatty, really made us feel good, we'd kind of be okay with the other stuff that was happening to us. But also sometimes food wasn't on offer to us. So we would also hoard food as well. And often we were eating things that had gone moldy, okay? Often we were eating things that were stale, okay? Because my mum didn't have a lot of money when we were kids, okay? And my abuser would also not feed us at times as well, okay? So that is the changing point. Between the 2 pictures, there is 3.5 years between the 2 pictures, okay? So I'm going to share a referral with you right now, okay? I used to work for a fostering organisation. I used to come across a lot of referrals, and I also work on a project now, and we come across a lot of referrals. But I just want to share this referral that was written. At the age of 13, this young person is very aggressive, abusive and manipulative. He is always involved in situations that cause trouble for others. This young person is not attending school and will struggle to achieve academically. This young person will struggle to achieve academically, socially, and will not be able to work with children, young people, or vulnerable adults. This young person will also struggle to have lasting relationships due to past experiences. This young person is a threat to others and requires an experienced carers and must be the only child in placement. Yeah? What do you notice about this referral? Very negative. Yeah. That is me. That was my referral. So when I got access to my file, I very much asked for my referral. I wanted to see what had been sent to my foster carers. I wanted to see how people described me back then, okay? And my referral was very long. This is a very condensed version of that, but I can assure you there was nothing positive in there, okay? Nothing positive in there. And the problem for me, okay, is that if we really think about it, when we're sending these referrals out, okay, to carers, we're trying to, whatever way we look at it, sell them the young people, okay? If you're trying to sell this, okay, to a foster carer, it's like trying to sell them a broken mobile phone, yeah? So if I took my iPhone out of my pocket and said, right, so I've got this iPhone here, it's got a broken screen, it's got this wrong with it, it's got that wrong with it, okay? It gets overheated, it's probably going to explode, okay? Would you buy that from me?
At least you know where you stand with it.
Well, at least you know where you stand with it, that's a good one, okay? Would you buy that from me? Probably not, yeah? So when somebody's writing all of this negative information, what are they already doing? They're writing me off before I've been given a chance, okay? Fortunately, someone did give me a chance, and my carers gave me a chance and they took me on. I find it quite funny that it says that requires experienced carers. My carers were brand new carers when I got placed. I was their first ever placement. But yeah, I was the only child in placement. I was what they called a high-risk solo placement, which, you know, when I read back on this now, I was like, is that really what I was like? You know, this cute, chubby little 13-year-old right there, is that really what I was like at that time? Potentially. There were some aspects that they've got right. I was very aggressive, I was very abusive, and I was manipulative. But the way that I see it is that I had manipulative behaviour that didn't actually mean that I, myself, was manipulative. And the reason I say that is because for 3 years of my life, I was being abused. Okay, for 3 years of my life, my abuser would manipulate me and would manipulate my family members. So what was I doing whilst he was doing that? I was learning from him, wasn't I? Yeah, but I was having to survive at the same time. Yeah, so often I would try to manipulate him because I wanted to survive. And so then when I went into a foster placement and I was unsure about what was going to happen to me, I had to tap back into my survival techniques, didn't I? Yeah? And I had to start using those things. So I would manipulate situations to be advantageous to me. So that is my referral. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my actual story with you. Okay? So I was born, that's how far back we go, guys. I was born on the 29th of August 1992. Okay? I was born to a mum and a dad. Then around 15 months later, my brother Toby was born. Then around about 11 months after that, my brother Corey was born. And then around about 2 and a bit years after that, my 2 little twin brothers were born. Okay? So in a really short space of time, my parents had 5 kids. They clearly had nothing better to do than to reproduce. Okay? I was part of a family that had lots of fun. Okay? I wasn't part of a family that from the get-go, my mum was a drug addict, my dad was into drugs, all of this stuff. There was none of that. Okay? We were a close family unit. I had lots of cousins, I had lots of aunties, lots of uncles, and we would often get together during the Christmas periods, during the summer periods, and we'd have what you would want in a family, okay? Fast forwarding a little bit, when I was 9 years old, my dad left. My dad left, and that was the changing point. When my dad left, my mum then started to go through depression. Now, anyone that knows anything about depression, it is a horrible mental illness. In my mum's case, she wasn't able to look after us. She wasn't able to fend for herself. There were times when I was seeing my mum hitting her head against the wall when she was self-harming. And at the age of 9, that's really difficult to see. To see someone that was so strong when you were a child to suddenly becoming something so different. And I had my dad there who had suddenly just left. So I was a child one day, and the next day I had to be an adult. And that was really, really tough for me. All 4 of my brothers had learning difficulties. All 4 of my brothers had to take medication, but my mum couldn't do it. She couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't take care of us. So I had to step up. I had to make sure that my brothers had what they needed. They had clothes, they had clean clothes, they had food, they had their medication. You know, they were cleaned, they were clean and everything like that. And that's, as a 9-year-old, that's really, really tough. So when we get young people that come and are placed with our foster carers, why should foster carers be so surprised when the kids say, I can do everything? Yeah? I'm not going to let you take care of my brother because I do that. Why should our carers be so surprised? And sometimes we really do need to look back on the young people's history to say that this is why they're doing the things that they're doing, okay? And I feel that at times, my carers didn't do that. They were very shocked, very surprised with the behaviours that I was presenting with, and it was all caused by my past experiences, okay? So, like I said, my dad left when I was 9. My mum went through depression. That led to my mum trusting someone that she shouldn't have trusted. This person came into our lives, and for my mum, it was fantastic because she finally thought that there was someone there that was going to take care of her and take care of my brothers. And I also thought it was great because I'd been longing for that older brother. I looked at him like an older brother, okay? He was my mum's cousin. So he came to stay with us, and for the first six weeks to 2 months, everything was absolutely fine. It was brilliant. But that's because the grooming process was just underway. Obviously, I didn't know I was being groomed at the time, but it started with kind of like, I was very much into wrestling when I was younger, so we'd often kind of watch wrestling together and things like that, but then kind of, when it was getting later at night, he'd kind of slip me kind of some adult material. So I started to get my first experience of pornography at the age of 9, and then through having that on a daily basis, I then became addicted to pornography. And that was really, really tough for my carers to deal with, okay? Because suddenly they'd come into the room that I was sitting in, and I'd be watching porn on the TV like it was Disney Channel, literally. So when they come in and they'd hit the roof, I'd be like, what? What's so wrong about this, okay? Because at the age of 9, for 3 years, every single day, I was looking at stuff, I was watching stuff, okay? And they couldn't quite understand that. So it started with pornography. It then moved on to kind of like touching and just things like that. And then it was full sexual abuse that myself and my brothers and my mum also suffered from this person, as well as physical and emotional abuse as well. And a lot of people always ask me, they say, Nick, what's the worst type of abuse you've ever suffered? And that's a really interesting question. What do you think is the worst abuse I've suffered? It's emotional, guys. It genuinely is. And emotional is so difficult, isn't it? Because it's really hard to prove. Yeah? But the emotional side of stuff is very, very hard to deal with. And the reason for that is because the sexual and the physical stuff and the neglect stops. Okay? But the emotional side of things, I believe, it's a lifelong thing that you keep. Okay? Because you can never forget about it. You can genuinely never forget about it. You can learn to overcome it. Okay? And as I do, I use it, okay, to aid me in what I do now. Okay, but it's something that you never overcome. I often still have images of my abuser. I often still have his voice in my head. But now I kind of use it as like a radio channel. What I call it now is crap FM, and I turn it down when it comes on. Okay, but yeah, emotional abuse is definitely the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. It's very, very difficult to overcome, but I've done it. So my abuse lasted for around 3 years. I was at school one day, and it was back in time when kind of there were still lots of school nurses and things like that. And I was talking to her, and she was just asking me how I was doing because I was missing a lot of school at this time. So in the referral, when they said I wasn't going to school and things, that was because I genuinely wasn't. I missed a good, around about a year's worth of schooling. So I was talking to her, and things started to come up. She started to really ask me about my family, what things were like at home, and I just broke down. Okay, for the first time in 3 years, I broke down. Okay, and suddenly I just started to come out with all of this stuff. But I immediately then tried to retract what I'd said because I knew that he was going to kill me. Yeah, and the reason for that, I've got 2 tiny little scars. Okay, and what it was is that he would tell me that he was going to kill me all the time if anyone ever found out. And I said, "You're not serious," on one occasion. And what he did was he took a blunt piece of glass and he put it across my wrist and he said, "Next time it will be sharp. So if anyone ever does find out, I will kill you." And so immediately I tried to retract what I said. I was like, I've just made it up, you know? I've just made it up. Because I was scared that when I got home, my mum wasn't going to be there. My brothers weren't going to be there because of what I'd said. So I tried to take it back, but by the time that I got home, social services were already there. Around about a week after social services had been, he had already done one a long time ago. He had been gone for at least 2 weeks at that point, and that's why I felt like I could come out and tell this nurse. But I always thought he was going to come back. Yeah, because that's what they do to you. That's what abusers do to you. They always think that they're over your shoulder just watching you. I genuinely felt like that. About a week after I told, my brothers, my 3 younger brothers, were then removed on a voluntary basis. But my mum wanted to keep me and Toby. We were the 2 oldest. But eventually we were then taken into care as well. Full care orders were given. So just fast forwarding a little bit, I went to my foster placement. Now I'm originally from Bristol. I went to a place called Cheltenham. It's so different to Bristol. It's so posh. It's so posh. The first thing that I noticed when I'm originally from a place called St. Paul's in Bristol, okay? Don't know if anyone's ever been there, but I'm originally from St. Paul's in Bristol. The first thing I noticed about Cheltenham was there were so many white people there, okay? I genuinely was not used to that. In St. Paul's, it's very much populated by black people, okay? So I identified as if I was black. And the reason for that is because the picture that I showed you earlier, I've got a black auntie. I didn't understand that my mum and her didn't have the same dad, okay? I just thought that my mum came out white, she came out black, okay? So what I used to tell my carers, when they'd ask me a bit about kind of like my identity and things like that, I'd say, I'm part black. And they'd say, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I've got black blood in me, do you know that? You know my Auntie Sarah, she's black." Okay, so that's how I used to identify. And it wasn't until they then told me that, you know, how it all works and things like that, that I really struggled with that, because that was a part of my identity that was then broken, okay? But I wasn't used to there being so many white people about, and that made me feel really scared, okay? Because I was taken out of this environment and put into a brand new environment that I'd never experienced before, okay? I was taken from a place where there were so many houses that were boarded up because they had been burnt down on the inside, suddenly being put into a really nice place, okay, that has a massive white house that I only ever thought existed in Washington, DC. Genuinely, okay? It was a massive white house, okay? Really nicely cut grass, a gate on the, like, walk up to the front door. You know, my social worker said, "You're going to like it here." I was like, "Yeah, you think, do you? Yeah? Okay, you're going to like it here." And those words stuck with me, okay? You're going to like it here. To me, that was being told that you are going to like it here, yeah? And I didn't do too well with people telling me what to do. So we went up to this door, and I banged on the door because already I was ready to make them reject me. Okay, because I thought if they then reject me, I'm going to be sent back home to my mum, okay? So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put fear into them, okay? I wanted them to feel really kind of how I was feeling. I wanted them to feel crap about themselves. So a lot of people say that there's like a honeymoon period and, you know, that lasts for like a week or 2 or 3 or 4. There was no honeymoon period with me, okay? I went straight in, and the first thing that I did was identify what I could break, okay? Because chaos was my life, yeah? I wanted to bring that chaos with me, okay? Again, I'm tapping into my survival techniques, manipulation, breaking stuff, all of those things, okay? Because I thought that if they rejected me and I rejected them, that was going to send me back home to my mum, okay? So we go in and I identify what I'm going to break, but I didn't break it there and then, okay? I had to pick my time to do that. So we walk into the kitchen diner, and there are so many people sat around this table. I was only expecting it to be me and my carers and my social worker. But there was my carers, myself, my social worker, their social worker, my court-appointed guardian, and the fostering service manager, okay? So there were so many people around this table, and they were all talking about me, but never to me. And that's really tough to deal with when you're inside, you're a scared little kid, okay? You've just been taken from your mum, you've been taken from your brothers, you're worried about your mum, you're worried about your brothers, and you're suddenly put into this environment with all these people that you don't know, and they're all talking about you, but never to you. That was really, really tough to deal with. They were talking about things such as kind of when I'd have to be in by, the rules. I hated rules. When I'd have to be in by, my bedtime, stuff like that. I really, really hated that. Up until the point they started talking about pocket money. Then I was like a meerkat, and I was like, oh, hello. Just things like that. And this just shows how much my social worker didn't know me, okay? Is that he said, Nick really loves a banana in the morning. I hated bananas when I was a kid. But again, this was just proving to me that nobody knew anything about me, okay? This just proved to me that everything I was going to experience was just now going to be wrong, or it was going to be as bad as when I was at home, yeah? So it didn't get off to the best start, in my view. They were there for a good 2 hours, and then they went. And that was literally when I was sat across the table from my carers, and this was kind of like the showdown, yeah? This was where they're trying to suss me out, and I'm trying to suss them out. So we're just having a general conversation, just, you know, what I like, and at that time, I just thought it was a waste of time. And then it came to the point where they said, right, it's time for bed. I hated that, because where I'm from, okay, and the environment I grew up with, I made the rules, yeah? Because I was the carer to my brothers, to myself, to my mum, and suddenly they were going to tell me that I had to go to bed. So for something as small as that, and as normal as that, I had a real problem with that. And we just got into a massive argument. Only a few hours to me being in placement, yeah? We got into a massive argument. I just thought, right, I can do it now, okay? I'm talking about smash something. So what I identified when I first walked in was this glass ornament, okay? It was a glass elephant, right? I thought, as I was walking by, I was like, oh, that looks expensive, okay? So I was next to the radiator, and it had like a cover on, so it was like a mantelpiece, and I was like, fine, I'll go to bed now. But as I was walking, it went off and just smashed all over the place. And I just saw my carers' faces, and it looked to say, like, what have we done? Yeah? What have we done? And I just thought, great, I've got you where I want you, okay? The next day, I was expecting them to have a massive go at me, okay? I was expecting them to start just shouting at me and saying, how could you do that? You're going to have to pay for all of that. But they didn't say anything. And now that made me feel really uncomfortable, because when I was at home, and if I did anything like that, you know, my mum would make a massive deal about it, and we'd have a massive argument the next day. But there was none of that. I just got her for school, took me to school, came home, and nothing was ever said again. It was a very positive placement. I was there for 9 years, yeah? That was my only ever placement. They were first-time carers. I was there for 9 years, which included being on the stay and put arrangement as well. And they were great carers in terms of promoting my educational needs, promoting kind of extra activities and things like that. Without them, would I have developed into who I am today? Potentially, but it would have probably been a lot harder. They really helped me in terms of my education. But some of the issues that I was facing whilst I was in care was still kind of the emotional side of things. They were still making me feel bad for things that I'd done in the past. they were still bringing shame to me for the things that I was currently doing. Okay? And that's one of my big messages today, is for you to talk to your foster carers about, is don't shame the child. Okay? Because I hated myself. Internally, I hated myself. I knew that the things that I was doing were wrong. Okay? But I didn't know what else to do. Okay? So when I'd go to school and I'd get into a fight, okay, that was because I felt safe in that sort of environment, because I had to fight for my life when I was a child. So if a young person ever comes to you and says, I've had to fight for my life, don't think that they're lying to you or think that they're joking about it, because the likelihood is that they've had to fight for their life in some way, or they've seen it as they've had to fight for their survival. So when I'd be at school and I'd be in a fight, I loved it because I felt safe in that environment, because I knew that I could control that. Okay? But then when I'd go home and my carers would be saying things like, the things that you're doing are so bad. If you carry on doing this, then you're going to be going up for a life in prison. All of this stuff. Your mum wouldn't be happy with you. When you start bringing my parents into things, I start flipping even more. Okay? So sometimes the behaviours that I was bringing were escalated by the responses I was getting from my carers. Let's also bear in mind that they were first-time carers as well. So they were still learning on the job. Okay? I was a very difficult child to have in their care. Some of the things that I was doing is that I really struggled because I really wanted to hurt them. Okay? I really wanted to hurt them every time they gave me a response that I didn't like. Okay? But I saw them like grandparents, because when they took me on, they were 63 years old. Okay? Now, ever since I was a child, my mum and my dad always raised me to have respect for older people. Okay? And that's something that I really did want to do, because I did feel like my mum would be let down if I didn't have that mentality. So I didn't want to physically hurt them, but I wanted to get my own way. So I would often try to physically intimidate them. And I don't know if you know this, but I was always quite a big lad. Right? I've always been tall, I've always been stocky. So what I would often do, and I've always been powerful, was that I used to just rip cupboard doors off the hinges. Until that hinge would come off, I would be pulling, and I'd then smash it onto the floor. Okay? Because I wanted to show them that I was angry. And I didn't know how to show people I was angry without causing chaos. Okay? I didn't know. So that's what I would often do. And they had to deal with that. Like I said, my carers were great at promoting my education. Okay? Without them, I don't think that I would have gone on to university and things. I really don't. But like I said, what they weren't so good at is their responses to me. Okay? And I think sometimes, no matter how many lots of training they go on or whatever, it's not until they're actually in that situation that you're going to see whether they've got it or not. Okay? And sometimes, do you know what it is? It's as basic as just empathizing with that child. Sometimes it's about taking a couple of steps back, putting those shoes on of that child and saying, if I had been through all of this as a kid, would I be acting this way? You probably would. Yeah? If that's all you were ever taught as a child, you probably would act that way. So whenever I'm, speaking at support groups or skills to foster or anything like that, that's a message that I always say, is sometimes just go back to the basic steps. Don't be trying to take all of these things that you've actually learned in training and think, what does the textbook say? Okay? Just be a person. Show them the human side of things. Okay? Show them that you are a person, that you have feelings, and just take a couple of steps back, put those shoes on and say, how would I react in this certain situation if I had been through this, this, and this? That's sometimes what it's all about. So just moving on again, I realised that I had a real problem with anger. And I did realise that my carers were right, that I would end up going to prison if I carried on the way that I was going, because the system wasn't always going to be able to protect me. Genuinely wasn't. And I started to realise that. So I needed to get help, and I did get help for that. I got involved in boxing, okay? I wouldn't recommend every child doing boxing, okay? But for me specifically, it definitely helped, okay? It taught me self-respect, it taught me discipline, it taught me respect for other people, and it taught me that every time I was angry, I didn't have to use these. Now, the way that I got into boxing probably wasn't the best way. The way that I got into it is, like I said, my carers were brand new carers, and I knew that because they told me, yeah? So what I did is that I tried to just use all this kind of different things that I knew about. I would tell my carers that after school, I used to struggle with maths a lot, okay? Hated maths, still do. I really struggled with maths, and my carers knew that, my teachers knew that. So I told them I was going to maths homework club. Like that existed. It didn't. But what I was actually doing was I was going up to my friends who lived 3 doors up from the school, and I was just going on his dad's punch bag in the garage. Okay? That was my first taste of it. I was like, I love this, because I can actually punch something non-stop, feel like I'm getting all my anger out without hurting anyone. Okay? And I used to do that for a while, up until parents' evening came. Okay? So we got to Miss Stratton, who was my maths teacher at the time, and she said, look, Nick's still really far behind. He needs to do this, this, and this. And my female carer turned around and said, well, was maths homework club not helping him? And at that point, I kind of turned my chair. I was just like, oh dear, what's going on? And so I think at that point, my carer had realised that, she had been fooled by me. We then got into the car, and now my carer's not the most silent type, but at this point she was. And I knew that I'd messed up at that point, yeah? So I really felt uncomfortable. When silence happens, I felt really uncomfortable. So I turned around to my carer and I said, so, did you enjoy that? And she just looked at me, she gave me this look, and I said, I guess not. And then when we got home, she then just exploded at me. And this was the first time that I'd seen my female carer go off like that. She's only about this tall, and she's like a little pit bull. Genuinely. When she goes off on one, she goes off on one. And she wasn't saying anything negative towards me, but all of the things that she said to me, for the first time ever, I paid attention. She said, we put trust in you, okay? We respected you. We gave you chance, okay? We gave you chance after chance after chance, and you've completely broken all of that, yeah? You've completely broken all of that, and that's all she said to me. And for the first time, I actually felt sorry for what I had done, okay? Although I thought I had done something really positive because I had gone myself to try and get help for the problem that I had, okay? I had actually done something quite bad because I'd lied to my carers, okay? Now, I was a very compulsive liar as a child, okay? But that was another survival technique that I learned. I learned to lie so that I wouldn't get hurt, okay? So I was very good at lying whilst I was in care. But for the first time, I saw that lying really doesn't make anything better. And she then, after everything was diffused, she then sat down with me and said, where have you been going? Okay, where have you been going? And I told her. And at that point, again, I started to see that kettle boiling, and that lid was just about to burst. But then she came back down and she said, well, tell me why you've been going to your friends. And I said, well, I've got a problem, right? I've got a problem. I'm just going up there and I'm hitting a punch bag. You told me that I'm going to go to prison if I carry on the way that I'm going, so I'm doing something about it. And she said, yeah, but why didn't you come to me? I said, why should I come to you? Okay? Again, I was tapping back into everything that I knew as a kid. I sought things out for myself. Okay? What I call it is negative resilience. We think of resilience as such a positive term, don't we? Yeah? If you're resilient, that's fantastic. You've bounced back from every little thing that's come your way. But for me, it was very negative. I was so resilient. I was so good at bouncing back from different things. I was so good at that once I'd bounced back from that and my walls had come up, I couldn't drop them again. And the reason for that is because the people previously that were supposed to take care of me, my mum and dad, let me down. I trusted them. The person that I then trusted let me down. So suddenly then when I'm put into this environment, okay, and let's bear in mind that often we'll tell our children not to talk to strangers, but we're going to let them live with them instead. I've really struggled with that. How could you prove to me that you're going to be able to take care of me? I don't know who you are, okay? I've only been here like a year and a half. She said, yeah, but it's all about trust. And she started to talk to me about what trust was and how trust was built. And eventually I did start to trust them. I started to trust them. From that point on, our relationship got a lot better. She started to tell me that if you really do start to focus now, you don't need to be like what they've said you're going to be like. So when I first came into care, my court-appointed guardian said to me that where you're going at the moment, you're really going to struggle academically. You're probably not going to achieve. Okay, if you don't start going to school and things like that, you're not going to achieve. And so straight away, when someone says something like that to me, I listen to the words I want to listen to. So straight away, I just heard you are not going to achieve. Okay, so straight away, shut down in terms of education. Wasn't going to try. I only went to school to see my friends, maybe to have a scrap, things like that. Okay, but when my carer really started to say that you don't have to be just another negative statistic, because I used to do a lot of research online about outcomes for kids that have been through the system, okay? And they're not very positive, okay? Only 6% of care leavers go off to university. That's so low, only 6%. You know, within last year of care leavers that are 25 plus, do you know that 40 care leavers killed themselves across the UK? That might seem like a small number in terms of kind of across the UK, but to me that's massive. That is 40 lives gone, okay? And they were care leavers. 30% of all homeless people at some point had been through the system, okay? And a lot of care leavers turn to drugs or go to prison. They're all the statistics that are out there. And my carer said you didn't have to be one of them. And then from that point on, I then settled down, I knuckled down, and I started to say, do you know what, I can do this, yeah? I can do this. So I started to really try. My carer got me a private tutor as well. And it just made a massive difference. I went on and got my 10 GCSEs, which was just amazing after being kind of predicted that I wouldn't get any. I then went on to sixth form. Now at this point, I had a massive ego. You know how Harry Potter is the boy that, the boy who lived? I used to say to people, I'm the boy that defied statistics. Yeah? Statistically, I wasn't going to achieve, but I did it. So I had a massive ego at that point. I thought of myself as kind of like top of the mountain sort of thing. Didn't have to try anymore. I was so wrong. A-levels were really, really difficult for me. I still passed year 12. But something that I thought about is that when I was boxing, the one person that made a massive difference in my life was my boxing coach. And the reason for that is he said to me, people think that boxing is all about who can get in the quickest punches, the most powerful punches to knock their opponent out. But if you think of it a little bit differently, if you take a couple of steps back, your opponent has to take 3 steps forward in order to get a good punch in. Okay? And he said that if you start applying that to your life as well, that's going to make a difference. So that's what I did. Okay? Is I went and spoke to my head of year at the time. I said, Miss, I know that I can do so much better than this. Okay? I know that I'm capable of so much more. So I said, hold me back a year. Okay? And then it was agreed that I could go back into year 12. And that's what I did. So I stayed in year 12. I really tried my best and I came out and got my A-levels, went into year 13, did fantastic, then went off to university. And that was for me, when I graduated university and I have to do that stupid pose with the thing like this and all up like that, okay, for the first time in my life, I actually felt proud. Yeah? That's something I didn't know before. I didn't know what pride was before. I didn't know what it was like to be proud of your achievements. My carers used to say to me, you should be proud of what you've done. I'd be like, all right, whatever. Okay, but because I didn't know what that feeling was like. But actually, when I stood up there with this like scroll in my hand or whatever, okay, I was like, this is what they meant. Yeah, so I did feel proud of myself. Okay, and then from that point on, I was like, I've got to keep going now. I've got to keep going. I've got to keep thinking about the things that my carers taught me when I was younger. I've just got to keep going. So I was very fortunate to be given an opportunity to work for another fostering agency. And I worked there for about 15 months. And I learned so much in terms of working with young people, working with social workers. And I'm so glad that I had that experience of working with social workers because I hated social workers as a kid. I had 9 of them, okay? And they genuinely were not good in my eyes. They were the social workers that would come talk to me, okay? But they'd be typing away as they're talking to me. So they're typing down every single thing that I'm saying. I hated that, okay? But then when I started working, with the social workers, I realised how hard a job it actually is, okay? And I realised how much work you've got to put in to, you know, organise your carers and things like that. And also I got to start working with the local authority social workers as well, which is who I had the bigger problem with. But I started to actually realise that there's so much more to fostering and child protection and all of that than what I saw on the other side. And so after 15 months, I then left that organisation to set up my own business. And that's what I do now as a speaker, a trainer and as a mentor. And I'm so glad to be able to do that. I'm so glad to now be able to share my experiences with young people, with foster carers, with yourselves, just because in some small way, when I put those questions up earlier about why have we chosen to do what we do, because I want to feel like I'm making a difference as well. It's my value base as well, yeah? I want to feel that my story in some way can make a difference. The experiences that I share, maybe carers can hear that and say, do you know what, I've got a young person that's just like that. Maybe I am going to try it when I walk a little bit in their shoes, okay? So that's why I do what I do. My life in care has been an emotional journey, okay? But if we build resilience within young people, their outcome for the future is going to be so much better, because I can assure you that there's nothing worse than being lonely as a care leaver, okay? Being sat in your flat, that isn't what you thought it was going to be, okay? Because at 16 I thought, great, when I leave care I'm going to get a flat, I'm going to have parties, I'm going to have all the girls around, all of that. Nothing like that. When you're sat there and you've got no gas, you've got no electricity, you've got no food in because your money's not coming, okay? And you're just there in the cold, the dark, and you're just sat there and you're by yourself. You've just got yourself and your thoughts. It's a really hard place to be. A couple of years ago, they did during Care Leavers Week, they did a special on the BBC about mental health amongst care leavers. And one of the most common reasons why care leavers committed suicide or decided that a life of crime was going to be better was because of loneliness. And because they didn't feel emotionally strong enough to deal with life's trials, okay? So if now as professionals and as foster carers, okay, we can get our foster carers to really build that emotional resilience for young people, just in a small way. It doesn't need to be you sit down in a meeting with them and say, what does resilience mean to you? Let's build it, okay? Because that's not going to work for them, okay? But just in some way, building that self-esteem, saying that no matter what you faced doesn't mean that that's going to hold you back for the rest of your life, because it's really, really not. But if we can build that emotional resilience within children and young people, then we've succeeded. I had one young person that I used to work with that was very, very angry, okay? I was thinking, oh, I've got experience here. I've got my own personal experience. What can I do with him? So rather than shame him for the behaviour, I just thought, how can we be creative right now? So he didn't like to fight, so that's where the difference was with us, but he was very angry. He did like to hit things, he liked to show aggression, but he didn't like to fight. So what we did was after a couple of sessions, I really worked him out. I went and bought this canvas, okay? And for the next session, we went out into the garden, okay? And I bought some paint, and I bought some paintbrushes. And what I said to him is, you're feeling angry right now, aren't you? And he'd say, yeah. I'd say, get this paintbrush, and I just want you to launch it at this canvas. And I had about 30 paintbrushes. Do you know how hard it is to repeatedly throw paintbrushes at a canvas? It really hurts your shoulder. We did it together, okay? And after about 30 seconds, he was knackered. He was out of it, okay? But he had got all of his aggression out, and you just saw a massive change in him. It didn't fix things, okay? But it gave him a bit of an outlet, okay? After about the 9th session that I came to see him, I was just sat in the room with his carer, just having a chat with him, and he came home from school. I said, you ready to have a talk? And he said, hold on a minute. And I said, why? And he said, I'm going outside to paint. And I thought, hello, okay. So I just observed him, and he genuinely was painting now. He wasn't throwing paint or paintbrushes or anything like that. What he had done is he had decided that when he felt angry, he was going to go and use a lot of dark colours and just start painting to express how he was feeling. And he didn't have to tell his carer that he was feeling angry anymore, because his carer could look at this painting that he had done and said, there's a lot of blacks in there, a lot of reds in there, lots of dark blues, lots of dark greens. Yeah, I know that he's angry. But he paint. No matter what he was feeling, he'd paint, yeah? And he loves art now. So I'm not saying that I've fixed him or anything like that, but I'm saying is that I saw the behaviour and I thought about how can we get creative here, okay? Rather than shaming him for the behaviour, how can we get creative? And that's what we did, just something as basic as that. And I do believe that that was helping him to build his emotional resilience. That's saying every time you're angry, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but it's about how you channel that into something positive. But like I said, my life has been fun, it's been hard. I often say that foster care is like a roller coaster. Sometimes you're really enjoying it because, you know, being a foster kid has its perks, okay? It genuinely does, it has its perks. But at times it's really, really difficult. So there'll be times that you're really enjoying that roller coaster, but there'll be times as you're getting up to that point where you're about to go over that drop, you're like, get me off this roller coaster now. And that was how I was feeling, okay? That was how I was feeling in terms of just when I wanted to go home, I really wanted to get off that roller coaster, yeah? So that is my story in the shortest way possible of telling it. But just to start summing up now, this right here is the logo of my training that I do. But I wanted to put this up to you because I wanted to ask you what you thought of the logo, what you see. So what do you see when you really look at it? It's called Through the Kid's Eyes, by the way. Prison. What else do you see? Family, yeah? That's what I had. I had a family. I had my birth family. I had my foster family. But at that time, I thought I was also in prison because I had everything taken away from me, okay? And I was told that I'd have to conform, okay? I was told that I'd have to follow these rules. And to me, that was like being in prison, okay? So I had that love, I had that family, but I also felt like I was trapped and I was in prison as well. My main messages of today is don't write young people off. Give them a chance, okay? Yes, some of the behaviours that they present with are really, really difficult. Yes, some of the things that they might have done are really negative in the past, but that doesn't mean it's going to keep on going right through their journey of being in care. It doesn't mean that it's going to keep on going when they go in to being an adult, okay? Because it certainly didn't happen for me. Not every young person will turn out the way that I've turned out, but they're on their own life journey. My brother has had a complete contrast to me, okay? My brother has been a negative statistic. He's been on drugs. He's been to prison, okay? He has been homeless. The only thing he's not... Because of the things that we did as children, the sexual abuse we were made to also do to each other and things like that, so we had to be split up for those reasons, okay? But he's done all of those things apart from committing suicide, okay? But he had some fantastic carers, as so did I. But it's quite interesting, okay, to see that we're from the same family. We had both a very good standard of care, but we've had completely different lives so far. Don't be surprised by rejection, anger, and chaotic behaviours because they're trying to cope. As much as our foster carers are trying to cope, I can assure you that the kids are really trying to cope as well. And like, I'm really not saying being a foster carer is easy. I'm really not saying that. A lot of people will ask me, Nick, will you ever be a foster carer? Absolutely not. I really wouldn't. I couldn't do it. I think it takes a special sort of person to be a foster carer. Would I have been able to deal with 13-year-old Nick? Definitely not. Okay? But my carers were able to. But stop being so surprised by rejection, anger, and chaotic behaviours because they genuinely are trying to survive. See the potential in each young person you come into contact with. If you don't see the potential within our young people, how do we expect them to see it within themselves? We can't expect that. So yeah, let's see the potential within each of our young people. So I genuinely live my life by these quotes. As I look back on my life, I realised that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. I've been rejected a lot throughout my life, okay? I've been rejected a couple of times for jobs and things like that, but that's led me on to go on and do the things that I do now. I've definitely got something better. I've been rejected in terms of relationships, girls not wanting to go out with me. I'm expecting an R right there, but you didn't give it to me, so thank you.
Believe it.
Thank you, John. But yeah, you know, I've gone on to something better, which is great. I'm now married. Okay, I've got a lovely daughter as well, and I've got a fantastic life.
Your daughter gets no but you do.
Yeah, there we go. She always does. I'm very jealous. In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take. So as a mentor, I'm given a lot of referrals, and I say yes to everyone because I genuinely believe that I can work with these young people in some small way. No matter what presenting behaviours they have, I do say yes, because if someone had said no to me, I could have been in residential care for all my childhood. And I don't believe that that suits young people. I believe that they belong, if they want to be, within a family environment, because that's what I wanted. So I never not work with the young people that are referred to me, because I genuinely believe that I could, whether they're male or female, I believe that I can make a difference to them. Now, I'm not saying for you to go away to your carers and say, start taking every single referral, because being a mentor and being a foster carer is completely different. But I'm just saying that I would regret it if I said, no, actually, I don't want to work with that young person because, or he might hit me, yeah? Or he might make an allegation against me, yeah? Now, those are real things. They can happen. But I like to think that if I'm doing everything that I can to prevent that from happening, then that's fine, I'll be protected, okay? But I know that I will regret not working with that young person much more than regretting working with that young person if they hit me or if they do something, okay? So my future is bright, and the reason for that is I'm going to show you two pictures. So this picture right up here, I purely put that up there because I think I look good in it. And secondly, is my daughter and my wife, okay? They are my life, and they are the reason why I do what I do, okay? Because my wife grew up in a family, well, she grew up not knowing much about fostering, not knowing much about kind of some things that happen to other children and stuff like that. And, you know, I wanted to educate her because she took me on, okay, and she knew nothing about my life before we got together. But around about 6 months into our relationship, she was 16 and I was 17. I told her about what had happened to me as a child, and I thought she's going to go running. She is, because I was so used to people rejecting me because of the things I'd done or the things that I'd experienced, but she didn't do that, okay? And I thought, I've got to keep her, yeah? I've got to keep her there. And I do what I do now because I want to raise my daughter in an environment to say it's okay to give stuff back. It's okay to share parts of your life with people, okay? And as she gets older, I do want to let her know that there are some children that don't have like a really, really lovely, nice mummy and daddy or a really nice family and things like that. There are some that have to go live with grandparents or with other people that aren't their family. Because I want her to be that sort of young person that if she sees a kid sat on their own that's really struggling, she'll go up to them and she'll be a friend, because that's what I needed. And someone did that to me and they're my best friend, yeah? And I want her to be that person. I've got a fantastic life. It's amazing. Do I wish the things that happened to me as a kid didn't happen? Yeah. But would I change it? No, I really wouldn't, because I do believe it's made me who I am today. I've learned so much along the way. I've learned how to be a good person. I've learned good values, good morals. I've got a fantastic family. I feel like my carers contributed so much to that. They taught me so much. I've got a fantastic relationship with my birth family now as well, with my mum and dad. We all actually went to Disneyland Paris last week as a little family, and that was amazing because that was the first time since my wife and I got married that they had been in the same room together. And that just showed to me, my dad is a person that never showed me love as a child. Still doesn't show me love now, okay, but that's because of how he was raised. But by doing stuff like that, going on holiday with my mum, who they don't have a very good relationship with, to me that shows me love, yeah? And I'm so happy, I genuinely am, and I just hope that a lot more young people can experience happiness when they become a care leaver, rather than loneliness, rather than isolation, rather than rejection, just some form of happiness. And obviously we're coming up to the festive period now. We're smack bang in the middle of it. We're coming up to Christmas Day. And Christmas Day is really tough as a care leaver if you've got no birth family. If you've got your foster family can't take you in either. It's really, really difficult. Fortunately, we do have a lot of kind of Christmas events, you know, like Lem CC. He does like a care leavers event and things like that. Fortunately, we do have a lot of that. But just kind of bear young people in mind that you might have worked with in the past. Maybe kind of give those carers a call, see if they can get in touch with those young people if they've still got relationships, and just see how they're getting along, because sometimes a phone call can make a massive difference. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and if you want to ask any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, that is the end. Thank you very much.
Nick, what did you study at university?
I studied theatre and professional practice. That's just posh terminology for I did acting at university. Yeah, so I did acting. So it's got nothing to do with what I do now. Well, it's taught me performing, yeah, definitely.
Do you still see brothers?
So I see two of them. My two younger twin brothers, they've just come out of care. And they've actually moved into adult residential living because Reese, he's got severe global developmental delay, and my brother Charlie, he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia as well. So they need a lot of support, and they're not ready to make that contact with us yet, because obviously they still hold a lot of kind of negative experiences and things from when we were children. But when the time's right, I'm definitely going to be open to going and seeing them. But yeah, Toby and Corey, got really good relationships with them. My brother Corey and his partner, they're just about to have a baby, which is great. My brother Toby, he's the one that's been to prison and things. He's still trying to find his way. Because of his criminal conviction, it's very hard for him to get a job on that. But he's still very positive. I'm still trying to help him and stuff. So we've definitely come together as a family, which I'm very grateful for, because I know a lot of care leavers that don't have that opportunity to build those bridges. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah. Anything else? No? That's great. Thank you.